Hello, I'm Michelle Rain, Assistant Director at the Wood County District Public Library, and today we're talking with Barbara Rothrock, the owner of Calico Sage and Thyme at the Carter House in Bowling Green, Ohio. I'm here today with Barbara Rothrock, who is a longtime member of Bowling Green's community, and she was the Chamber of Commerce Outstanding Citizen in 2005 and has been the owner of Calico Sage and Thyme since 1975, which by my count is 39 years in business here in Bowling Green. So I'm really glad that you were able to come and talk with us about your life and experience in Bowling Green here.
Thank you.
So one thing I noticed when I was looking at your life story is that you've been ahead of the curve in many areas of your life. You were a woman in business, and then your business focused on herbs before the sustainability movement that we've seen grow. It had not taken off at the time that you opened up your store. So tell us about deciding to open the store.
Well, there was great interest in the mid-'70s in herbs. Maybe not the whole sustainability movement, but the interest in herbs was huge. And a group of us in Bowling Green had read about the it wasn't the Maumee Valley Herb Society at that time, but at Stranahan Arboretum in Toledo, they were starting an herb group. And so 4 or 5 of us, a carload, we just decided we'd go. And we got very involved in their sales. We started making herb products. The 70s were a real crafty kind of decade. And so we were making herb salad dressings and herberies and potpourri and all kinds of things like that. And I had been a teacher, but really didn't want to go back to teaching, but I wanted a job. So I thought, well, why don't I take these herb products and use this as the beginning for a store? And so my friends, we were all kind of taking off in different avenues at that time, but they all said, it was kind of like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, let's open a store, let's do a store. So they were highly supportive. And I was the sole proprietor, that's how we organized it, but I had a lot of support from a neighbor who ended up working for me for years and years and years, Sue Clark, who then obviously began doing things in downtown Bowling Green as a community foundation person. And there were other people then who were taking jobs at the university at that time. One gal was doing continuing education and anyway, they were all helping me paint and develop products, and we developed herb blends that were specifically for us, like the popcorn blend and the salad blend and an Italian blend and so forth and so on. So the herbs were the core of the business, but I learned very quickly that that wasn't enough to pay the rent and to pay myself and to pay a couple of helpers. And at that time, there were a lot of herb businesses starting all over Ohio. And so because of the Herb Society, I knew about them. And we met in, many small businesses met in Lebanon, Ohio, and talked about how do we do this. And I remember the woman from Quailcrest in Worcester was there too. And she and I were talking. We were the non-purists. We were saying you have to sell mugs and tea towels and hats and earrings and other things. And other people were saying, oh, you can't do that. It's got to be pure. The fun part about that is Quailcrest is still going, and so am I, and the others are long gone, because you have to diversify enough to sustain your core interest, I think. And I still think of herbs, and when the herb plants come in, as they do very soon next week, it's a very exciting time for us, because that's what began the business, that's what my interest is. But of course, we always sell the herbs and spices the year round.
Well, did you have any particular challenges? What year did the store open, and what kind of challenges did you face when you went and said, okay, we're going to do this?
The biggest challenge was finding a place, and we did find that. The doctors were just leaving the building I am currently in. There had been a whole row of doctors. They were building offices at the Wood County Hospital for doctors. So the doctors were moving, and so that was a very inexpensive space. It was $150 a month. So that was exciting, but money was the real critical thing. I had a very little amount of money from my grandmother, and I needed more. And I went to the bank to borrow $2,000. I can't believe this now, but it became a huge thing. And they would not loan it to me unless my then husband would sign. And then when it came time to sign, I couldn't sign on the top line. They insisted he come in and sign on the top line, and then he'd let me sign on the bottom line. But years went by, and it took a lot of years. It was very hard at that time for women to get financing to start a business. And as far as the bank was concerned, I didn't have a track record. It didn't matter that I'd worked. I'd been a school teacher. I'd had an income. I had done other things in my life. So I had a work history, but they saw me as a housewife wanting to have fun, you know. And so it took probably 10 years for that bank to really trust me, and I could go get the loans on my own. Because inventory loans are critical to a small business. You know, you have to build up inventory for November, December, and so you have to have this influx of cash, and then you pay it back, and then it's like farmers do, you know, all kinds of businesses do this kind of thing. So I think the economic part was hard. I don't remember. I know that my friends were very supportive, but there were people who said, you'll never make it. That was hard to hear. I went out to talk to a business professor at the university to explain what I wanted to do. I was looking for guidance, and he said, oh, you'll never make it. You'll never make it. And so that was fun 25 years later when I would be waiting on his wife, you know, to think, well, he said I'd never make it. But
so what did you do to sort of persevere and keep convincing these people
I'm just stubborn. And I didn't have to, you know, I was looking for guidance from him, and I wasn't getting it. And I didn't know other people to talk to. I didn't know of somebody else that I would be comfortable with asking for guidance at that time. And I can't remember. The chamber was of no help. I remember that. And so
Isn't that ironic?
I figured I could do it. I just thought I could do it.
So when you wanted to start out, the chamber wasn't really there for you, but years later, you were the chamber's outstanding citizen. Well, full circle.
Life is full of irony, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, so there weren't any other women in business at that time that you could talk with?
Oh, there must have been. I'm sure there were a lot of hairdressers, for example. I can't think about retail. I can't think of another retail. And in real estate, there were women selling real estate at that time. But mostly up and down Main Street were males.
Yeah. Do you remember what was in the store on the first day? What was your biggest seller that first day?
Oh my, you just said it has been 39 years. No, I can't tell you. I know Bennington pottery was very, very popular. It came from Vermont. We sold candles, that would be it.
Okay.
We sold so many candles in the 70s because everybody was burning candles. So we had several companies.
Well, do you have a favorite herb?
Tarragon, French tarragon.
And what do you like about that one?
I don't know. I like the flavor. I like to cook with it. I like it on eggs and chicken and in salads. And it's a perennial, so it's always there in the pot on my porch, and so I can just always have it.
Does it
fresh.
overwinter well?
It does. It does.
So we kind of are really proud here in Bowling Green of the fact that our downtown is still successful.
Yes, yes.
What do you think has made the downtown successful? And talk a little bit about your role in contributing to that.
Okay. I think there have been a lot of people who really wanted it to grow and change with the times, and a lot of people who were fighting to keep stores open. You know, Floyd Crafts, Mr. Downtown, and he's been there backing. He talks to people. See, he opened the year after I did, or I would have gone to talk to him because we're friends now. But he's supportive of young businesses, and he wants to know how they're doing. The Wicks family has been big in the downtown. The New Loves have done so much for downtown businesses too. So there are a lot of people who've worked consistently through the decades as businesses come and businesses go, and there's been a lot of change. It used to not be so many restaurants and bars. It used to be more retail, and that has changed. But I think it's still vibrant, and we've been fortunate in people that have been in the Downtown Business Association, which later became Main Street BG, which now is Downtown BG. The directors in there, we've had a nice string of people who really worked hard to keep the energy going. And I think Heritage 2000 helped because there was a lot of structural changes that were done with bricks and face fronts and so forth to make it look good. And I think it's a charming downtown.
It is a charming downtown.
It looks, I had an artist at the Black Swamp Arts Festival tell me one time, it looks like Disneyland. It looks like Main Street Disneyland. I thought, what's wrong with this picture? This is Main Street. You know, Disneyland's the fake. We're the real one. And the Black Swamp Arts Festival is another thing. That started with the DBA, but then wisely became an independent organization of its own. But it was very exciting those first couple of years to be a part. Once again, it was Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland saying, let's have a festival. And so Kelly Wicks was instrumental in that, and he pulled a whole lot of people together. We said, we can do this, we can do this. And it worked.
That seems to be a really common attitude here in Bowling Green. If we need something, then a group of people get together and do it. So I was wondering, what other sort of activities or organizations have you been a part of that I might not know about?
Well, it's been primarily the downtown kind of things. I've been involved with Wood County Historical Society out there too. Their garden, and also I was on that board for a while, and there was an Arthritis Foundation board I was on for a while. But the core of what I've been interested in is the downtown. And I've really focused on, because I was raising a family at the same time, and I've had pulls about energy and time for that. And so I focused on the one thing I really, really cared about. And I'm proud of and it's just been so many people working on it.
What have you seen change the most in Bowling Green since you've been here?
Well, a lot of growth. It's way bigger. Way, way bigger than it used to be, of course. And when I came in 1968, there was nothing air conditioned. This may seem very frivolous, but I went into a drugstore and it was not air conditioned. I went into a restaurant and I had a 1-year-old child with me. We could not find a cool place to eat lunch. So that's a silly thing, but kind of fun to think how much that has changed. And then the growth, because it's just spread out. So much more housing, so many more retail.
What was your favorite part of raising a family in Bowling Green?
It was very comfortable. From where we lived, the kids could go on their bikes to the library, to school, to the swimming pool, wherever they needed to go. So that was very nice because I didn't have to spend a lot of time in a car getting them to places because they could get to where they needed to go most of the time. And the schools were good, and that was very comfortable with that. Then so many activities, way too many activities. And so you picked and chose what we would do, but there was something for everybody. So.
Was the Clazelle a theater when you
Yes,
lived here?
absolutely.
And you went and saw movies there?
Oh, absolutely.
What was it like on the inside then?
It was not real fancy. And I can remember, stepping on gum. It wasn't always real clean by the time we were going to movies in the 70s here. But I can remember I saw lots of fun things down there, and the kids could go there. That was another thing, the kids could go on their bikes and go do that. They didn't have to be driven and picked up.
What did the movies cost?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Because today it's upwards of $12.
Yeah, it was not anything like that. And the kids and any of us could do it.
Yeah.
And it went through a lot of changes through the years, and I love that period when they were showing art films. And I know at my store on Sunday afternoons there were people come down out of Toledo to shop and then go to the Clazelle because they were showing art films. That was way too short a period of time. It was a wonderful thing that they tried.
Well, who does the buying at your store? I can recall going to your store and picking out items that I thought were fantastic, and then a couple of years later, I would see those items in the big box retailers. Who does the buying, and what is your process?
Well, I'm the primary buyer. I've always used someone else in the store to help with that, and at some points there were 3 of us going. And there are gift marts. There was a big gift mart in Columbus in the early days, and then I go to Chicago. And now these days I'm still going to Chicago to the merchandise mart and to gift shows, and my daughter lives there, so she's been helping me long range, for 25 years. She says she started by counting pennies in the cash register now. So I go there and I have someone to help me, because you need another set of eyes. And I've always felt that way. And so people who have helped me, Wilma Pulver, Pat Emsch, Diane Widmer, through the years, there have been a lot of good people who've helped me with the buying. And we search the trade magazines, and I have a story about that, because there was a store that opened in Perrysburg about the same time I did. And that woman came down to chat one time, and she said, "Well, you do all your buying in New York, don't you?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Well, you can't exist without, because you get brand new stuff there." She lasted maybe 5 years. And I think I was wise to keep doing the buying in the Midwest, because I was selling to Midwest people. And there were times early on we thought we got on the bandwagon too early. And like you said, then a couple years later it would be popular. But I just always have had my eye open. And when I travel, I take notes on my notorious little notebook. I'm always looking, always looking. I never quit.
Well, you mentioned your daughter helped out in the store. Did you see your store as a place to mentor other women? I'm thinking of Sue Clark, who worked there, and Becky Lobbs and Barb Ruland. How did you see your store as an opportunity to mentor other women?
I never thought of it that way. It's always been kind of a team effort, and I like to think of the staff as being a team, because I need a lot of help, and that give and take does help the place work. But there have been a lot of college students, and a lot of kids that grew up in Bowling Green. I call them the Calico Kids, and I hear from them at Christmas. There's a girl in California, another one in Wyoming, one in Brooklyn, another one in Florida, one in Texas. I mean, they're all over the country now, and that's so fun to get a Christmas card from a Calico kid in San Diego who remembers working, and she's still in retail out there. So it's been fun to do that, and I think I mentored by accident, but I learned a lot from the people that worked with me too, and I enjoy working with people rather than doing it on my own.
What kind of lessons do you think you've learned as a sort of a retailer and businesswoman here in Bowling Green that you would want to pass on to other women?
Well, I think patience is very important, and ignoring the garbage is important. And I think everything that goes around comes around, and the cycles in retailing are just, think about that, herbs in the mid-'70s. Well, now it's a big thank you, Food Network, for all you've done to help me sell herb plants. But it just goes around, colors, the things people are interested in change. So it's new, but it's old at the same time. But I think for women in business, they just have to be patient and say to themselves, I can do this. And you can. There's not always a lot of encouragement, especially in the economic area. I think that's still true. And aren't we still fighting equal pay for equal work? I think maybe we are. And so it takes a long time, but keep struggling.
Well, that's a really nice segue to my next question, which was, how do you feel like your life has changed because of the women's rights movement from the 70s and all of that legislative work?
Well, friends my age, those of us who graduated from high school in the 1950s, we say they changed all the rules on us. We did all the 1950s stuff. We got married, and we knew the husband, we would do everything we could to support the husband and what he wanted to do. And then there began to be ripples. There was a book or two, there were a couple women who were making very loud noises, and all the rules just turned upside down. And so we think of ourselves as a transition generation because then we had a chance to explore things that we wanted to do. And it was costly in a lot of ways, and there were things we lost, but...
What are some of the things you feel like you might have lost?
Well, the comfort of being a taken care of housewife, maybe. I never was very good at that anyway. But there's security. I mean, when you're a single woman, and there was a divorce in there too. And so as a single woman, I've always been more vulnerable than I was. But now I've learned to live with that too.
Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and your early years.
I grew up in western Kansas. I was born in Dodge City in the middle of a blizzard. That's what my mama told me. And so I lived there and went to the University of Kansas and got a bachelor's and a master's. My intent was to be the world's best history teacher that ever existed. And so that's what I worked toward. And then I taught school for a while in Kansas City and also in Wisconsin. And then I learned that women don't teach American history. That's the football coach's job. So the schools I was in, they always put me in an English class. Fortunately, I had a little training in that. And so, but the football coach, so that's another thing that has changed as time went on, that I think, and law school, I really had wanted to go to law school. And at that time, the University of Kansas Law School had 3 women in it. And I knew I couldn't do that. I wasn't that strong, I couldn't take that on. And so I focused on American history instead. And it served me well. You know, it's an enriching part of my life. It's been a...
So what did you do when you were prepared to be a history teacher and all of a sudden they said, oh, by the way, you'll be teaching English this year?
I learned to love Julius Caesar very quickly. No, I really didn't. I really didn't. And then they told me that I was going to be a coach for speech festivals. Well, I couldn't believe that. So on Saturdays, I'd get on a bus in Wisconsin, go with a bunch of high school kids to a speech meet, and that was an educational experience, one I would not want to repeat. And one of the reasons I got out of teaching, I knew I was just not game for that.
So what did you learn on these bus trips that sent you hightailing to retail?
The noise, I don't know. I just was not a good person to work with adolescents. I think I don't have that much intelligence. I mean, I'll take that back.
I hope you do. I'm glad you took that back.
I'm smart enough. I don't have the patience. The patience is the word I was looking for. And I needed something more concrete. It's very difficult to teach young people, especially adolescents, because you don't get a lot of good feedback back. And I have a friend who's stayed teaching forever, and she could do it, but I couldn't. I needed to be able to count the money in the cash register at the end of the day and know whether I'd done a good job that day or not. And I needed more feedback, and in retail, I've had a lot of feedback.
Were there any sort of teaching skills that did carry over when you started your business?
You bet. Organization, planning ahead. I mean, these are things that are necessary. Keeping good records. These are all things skills teachers learn and use, and they apply directly to other jobs as well. And I think that's one reason I made it this long, is because I'm a good record keeper and the checkbook balances, and you know, I can understand the give and flow of the...
So how did you learn about things like tax code and, you know, preparing all the financials and that sort of thing, if you just kind of jumped in?
Well, I think anybody that starts a business is told the first 2 things you need is a good accountant and a lawyer. Now, I never did find the need for using the lawyer very much, but the accountant became a very good friend of mine over the course of 30-some years, and now her daughter is doing my taxes. So it's been a long time relationship, and I couldn't have made it without her. I couldn't have.
What did your kids think when you started the business? Because I'm sure you were an outlier at that point.
Yeah.
What did the kids think?
Well, I think they enjoyed it. My son loved helping set it up. He was just a kid, let's see, in 75, how old would he have been? Not even 12, I don't think, but he enjoyed the setting up and hammering nails and things and stuff. And I think my children have always had a lot of pride. And I have a story about that too, because my daughter was in an English class at the junior high, and she came home one day and she said people were talking about what their mothers did. I don't know what the occasion was. And she said, "Mom, you're really unusual." I think she used the word strange is the word she used, because she listened to what all the mothers, and her mother was running a store. I mean, that was very odd. And so I took great pride in that. She thought it was a little disturbing. But, I think that says to a girl, if my mom can do that, I can do about anything.
And what does she do now?
She's a medical clinical psychologist at a medical school at Northwestern in Chicago.
Well, she's doing
So
really
she's
well.
done very well.
Yes, indeed. I know you've been involved with the library in the Community Reads movement, and I know that we at the library really appreciate your involvement. What has been, so of course I have to talk about books because I'm a librarian. Who has been your favorite author that the library has brought in? And what do you like to read?
I love to read mysteries. That's my relaxation, my escape from the world, and it's solving puzzles. And that's what I do. That's the main thing I do in my work, is solving puzzles. So I think mysteries have helped me do a better job of learning how to solve puzzles. That's stretching it a bit, maybe, but I like to rationalize that. And then I love to read novels. I like nonfiction. I just read Sonia Sotomayor's book, My Beloved World. I just thought it was fascinating. I love to know about people. Her memoir was fascinating to me. I like to know what other women are doing in the world. And I love history. I love to read historical things. And so there have been mystery writers that have come to our Wood County Public Library that I have loved. And I can see Laura Lippman. She was one I enjoyed so very much. And the fellow that came recently who had written the Civil War book, who was so entertaining. I can't say his name.
I can't either because I wasn't here then.
Okay.
But I remember,
he was,
I know what
he
you're
was
talking
wonderful
about.
too. And so through the years, the library's been a source of great enrichment for my life. And the city parks, those are my two big favorite leisure time things.
Well, speaking of the library, we're right now in a technological sort of interesting place with people predicting the death of the book.
I know.
Because it's all going to go electronic. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the technology that you have seen change over your life and how you feel about technology and things like EBooks and tools, how technology might be a tool that works for you or things that you want to share about that.
Well, my son would be happy to tell you that I'm a Luddite, that I resist. And I got a fax machine in about 2000, and he called and said, "Mom, that's wonderful. You almost got a machine that ended in the last century," because he's very techie. And so I have to have a lot of help in that area, and I have no desire to read ebooks. I'm sorry. I know that's where it's all going, but I hope you'll have a few books.
I promise I'll keep a few for you, Barbara.
Or at least the interlibrary loan is so wonderful. Surely we can still get books. And I don't know, I think I don't like the computer very much either. I use it as minimally as possible. It's been very difficult because even my suppliers, I dealt yesterday with 2 different companies that want it all on the computer. They're firing their sales reps, which is something I just hate to see because I've had so much help through my sales reps that cover Ohio because they can tell me what's selling other places, that we've become friends, and they want my store to succeed because then they get more orders, and they're eliminating all that, going straight to the computer, and I don't like it. And I know I'm old, and that's okay.
Well, it's about relationships, and a lot of people are talking about how technology is increasing our ability to stay connected, but it kind of sounds like you're not having that experience.
No, and I really resist the buying. They say, well, the only way you can order anymore now is from us is on the computer. And I go home and there are these little things. There are all these scarves with all these different colors. Well, I can't buy scarves. I want to feel it. I want to see what the color really looks like. And so that's why I'm willing to drive to Chicago or Columbus or wait for a sales rep to come call on me. Their cars are loaded with stuff, and we go in the back room and I buy that way. And I prefer it that way. And the next generation, good luck to them.
Well, speaking of sort of suppliers, I can remember when Lynn Nachbar had pottery in your store. Do you still represent local artists?
Absolutely, and it's something I love, the pottery especially. I've had Roxy Thomas and then Lynn Nachbar, and there have been wonderful local potters through the years, and now I have Brandon Knott, who is from Continental Ohio, but people like to buy local, and I think it is so important these days as people are recognizing that, and we have artists. We have a couple of photographers and a painter and a woman who works in a lot of different media. And for people to come in and be able to buy something that was produced here in Bowling Green or in the region, I think is very, very important. And then that helps the economy here go too. And another thing about the store, I was thinking that the money that comes into a little shop like mine goes right back out, right here in Wood County, so much, because my insurance agent is here, my CPA is here, the bank is here. We buy supplies from Ace Hardware and Ben Franklin to keep the light bulbs and so forth. And there are all these things that just go right back into the community, and it helps keep other businesses alive too. And the taxes we pay, and I collect sales tax for the state of Ohio. So I think every little business has a real impact on the local economy, and then it creeps out to the county, to the state.
Well, they say that local businesses are pretty much what started America and might be what sustains it, as people no longer can depend on these huge corporations for a lifetime of employment. What would you say to other local business owners or someone who wanted to start up a local business here in Bowling Green?
Have a good idea. Don't try to do what a big box is doing. And I think service and personal relationships, I think Floyd Crafts says people like to buy things from people they know. And I agree with him. You like to have a relationship, you'd like to see the same faces there, and you know what these people are interested in. And so I think the good idea is the most important thing. Financing is critical. Energy, good health is key.
You had a brush with a health issue, and I'm just so glad that you came through that.
Thank you. You've been digging around. These librarians, yes. So but the health and the energy and the love of what you're doing, I think, whatever you're doing, if you love it, that helps you succeed in what you're doing. And I love to cook, I love to garden, I love pottery, I love paintings, I love books. Well, lucky me. I've been able all these years to surround myself. I don't have to own them all. I guess technically I do until I sell them, but I get to enjoy the things I like. And I'm not saving the world, but my little corner, I know we've helped a lot of people have more pleasurable lives from coming in there and enjoying the merchandise that we have. And that's really been fun.
That's wonderful. I know as a shopper, I enjoy giving money to people I know. So, I would rather support a local business than, someone headquartered far away.
Yeah,
So
well, you just keep it up.
it's a pleasure to have your store in our community.
Thank you very, very much.
It's about to be planting season again.
Yes.
And so what would you recommend to someone starting out? What herb or plant could I buy that I probably can't kill?
Well, it depends on where you put it.
Okay.
That's the thing to know. Read that tag, read the tag, because most herbs, and that's what we mostly say, we have some perennials, but mostly it's herbs. Most of them like sunshine, but there's some that will prefer the shade like mint. So read the tag and do what it says. If you plant a lavender plant in a shady, water-soaked area, it's going to die. You want it in sun with good drainage, but those little tags, I mean, people have been working hard on those. And they can tell you. And then the resources, you know, I still look in books, but I understand there are people that look on the internet for information about plants too. So wherever you get your information, you can think about where you put them. And with herbs, I think it's important to plant things that you enjoy eating. You know, why not? And then there's so many fragrant ones. The lavender I mentioned, lemon verbena, and pineapple sage. I mean, these scents are just mind-boggling, and it's wonderful to have that around you. You can sit on the patio and smell pineapple and lemon and rose geraniums, and it just makes life more pleasant, I think.
Where do you come down on the pronunciation of the word? Because there's like this movement now to add the H back after for years we learned to take the H out.
H is very English, and I understand in the South of the United States, a lot of people say herb, but the Herb Society of America says herb, you know, and so the Maumee Valley Herb Society is the Maumee Valley Herb Society, and so I've stayed with herbs, but when I'm in England, I say herb. Okay? So I don't think it matters. I don't think it really matters.
Have you been able to tour some of the great gardens in England?
Sissinghurst.
Wow, I've never been, so I would love to hear about your travels.
And Hidcote or Hydecote. That's another one I'm not sure. I've called it Hidcote. And there are a lot of plants. Hidcote lavender comes from there. So in a limited way, I have. And when I travel in the United States, I look very hard for herb gardens. And so even I was at the Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix this winter, and I went straight to the herb garden because I needed to know what could grow out there on the desert, and not things we grow here.
I was going to say, what does grow on the desert?
There were things I didn't know, but epazote, you know, they need that for the Mexican cooking, and we will be having that too, so it won't winter over here, but there are a lot of things to learn from plants, and there's a lot of magical stuff connected with herbs too. And I'm a pretty practical person, so I don't put a lot of faith in the magic part of it, but I love to read about it. I think it's fascinating.
Weren't the early gardens here in the colonial era very strongly influenced by herb planting?
Because they grew them, they brought them for medicine. And so they grew them to doctor with, and you could see why they would. And there are stories of women coming over on the boats to America with seeds sown in their hems, or they would make a patch under their skirt and put all their seeds in there and then sew it on so they'd be sure and have those seeds they thought for foxglove or whatever they needed for medicinal purposes. So it was a big part of what came over from Europe in the early days, and even on the frontier here too.
So a lot of them aren't really native plants, is that true?
I think that's very true. But there are things like mullein that grows, you see that mullein plant out as you drive around here, and people used to think if you would burn that and inhale the smoke, that it would help with your asthma. Well, I have a daughter with asthma. I would have killed her if I had done that. But the stories are interesting, and that doctrine of signatures. You look at the plant and you can figure out lungwort has a leaf shaped like a lung with spots. So obviously that's good for tuberculosis, right? So I'm not advocating any of this.
Sure.
I'm not. But the story, you know, and people had to use what they could.
Right.
They didn't have the drugstores to go to for help.
Well, if you were going to recommend a recipe, like a starter recipe using an herb, what what would you recommend? Like, I have seen all these very fancy recipes for lavender scented lemon tea cakes, which seem a little beyond my repertoire, but for a starter, someone who wanted to use herbs in a practical way.
Okay. When you make a pitcher of lemonade, just cut a branch of rosemary and just put it in there, or lemon verbena. A beautiful branch of lemon verbena right in your glass pitcher of lemonade. It's just gorgeous. It'll make your book club think you just worked hard all morning on it. You can chop up any herb and put it in butter and smash it real good and then chill it, and then you have basil butter or tarragon butter to put on warm breads or on vegetables. And so those are simple
Yes,
things
those
you can
are.
do. And you could broil a chicken breast and then just lather it with French tarragon butter and salt and pepper, and it's fabulous.
That sounds delicious.
And it'll smell good, too.
Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about a little bit?
Well, probably I could answer that better if you asked me that tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I'll think of something. Oh, I wish I had said
Yes.
that. But I think the role of women has changed. Just to review, the role of women has changed so much, and it's fascinating to me to see what a long way we've come and then how it's going backwards again. I don't understand this.
I do want to ask you about that. I recently read an article that said this whole movement of sort of crafting and the women who are staying at home and making quilts and selling them online.
Canning again.
They're canning again. They're preserving again. They're making their own clothes again. That is super interesting. And one writer that I was reading was saying that in some ways they're selling out what the previous generations have worked for. What are you thinking about that?
I don't think they're selling out. I have a young friend who's quite a feminist, and she's a professional woman, and she's just taken up canning with a vengeance. And I think it's just interest, and she recently married and moved to a farm. It just is logical. It's logical that she would do that. And I got rid of all my canning jars, so it was great. I did that in the 70s and have no idea. But I don't think they're selling out. I think it's exploration and knitting.
Oh, yes.
That's a big thing now. I'm just blown away by it. But what I'm concerned about is the women not realizing how hard the previous generations have worked for equal pay, which I mentioned before. And I think, that's a very serious issue in medical care and equal opportunities for women and minorities of all kinds, too. I hate to see the civil rights movement and the women's movement in the 70s was so exciting, the 60s and 70s. I hate to see us going back and becoming more conservative in that area, in those areas. I think I'd like to see more exploration of abilities for people, all people.
That sounds great. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.